This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review, and what I'm looking at today is seasons 1 and 2 of Amazon's Fleabag. And when I saw the first episode of this show, I hated it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the character she plays, which, by the way, it's worth mentioning that in IMDb is listed as Fleabag. The character's name is Fleabag, and that is not possible. It's absolutely possible, and that's highly unlikely, if only because it indicates a level of dysfunction of that family that is just off the charts. But I also don't remember the character's name being used. As I said, the first episode of this show really bugged me. Fleabag on the show is a thief, she's manipulative, and she has this habit of turning to the camera and telling us things as if we're actually present. And this started literally with the first episode. And for me, that bothers me because I don't know you yet. I haven't invested the time to know you yet. And that you're going to turn to the camera and start talking to me, yes, I'm taking that personally. Roll with it. That she's going to turn to the camera and start talking to me as the viewer is just irritating. And I wish they'd stop doing it. But I didn't give up on the series. And I kept watching. And believe it or not, having finished the second season reminds me a lot of Seinfeld, which is an interesting series, by the way, when you think that Jerry Seinfeld as a comedian is not funny. But the series, which bears his name, is funny. And that has a lot to do with the ensemble cast. But I'm not here to talk about Seinfeld. I'm here to talk about Fleabag. And I mentioned Seinfeld because within the context of the group that they're in, they're hilarious. In later seasons of Seinfeld, they started to go outside that group, and you started to really see these people in perspective, and to see how reprehensible and how vain and shallow they were as people. They were terrible people, but Seinfeld didn't introduce that aspect of their characters till much later in the show's run. With Fleabag, Episode 1 introduces you to some really reprehensible people. I don't mean they're axe murderers or anything on that scale, but they're not very good people in the way they relate to each other and the way they relate to people around them. Just awful people. But you know what? The awfulness of them is couched in realism. And admittedly, putting so much of it forward is off-putting. It really makes it hard to watch. But give these characters a chance. This show is really funny, and even Fleabag, God, I'm not even able to call her that. I'm going to call her Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because that's her name, and I can't call her Fleabag. That just doesn't work for me. I think it's dumb. I don't mind it for the name of the show. I don't even know why it's called Fleabag, to be totally honest with you. But I can roll with that for the name of the show. The name of a person, especially this person, an upper crust Brit, not so much. In any case, most of the people are pretty reprehensible. But the thing is, as you watch the show, you understand why they're reprehensible. And they sometimes are working hard to do the best they can. They don't always succeed. Most of the time, they don't succeed. But they do try. Even Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character tries a lot. She doesn't succeed most of the time, but she does try. And it actually becomes very endearing. And you begin to really care for her character. And in season 2, she even stops talking to the camera so much, which is just so grating. But once she stops doing it, she'll still turn to the camera. But it'll just be a glance, typically. She doesn't talk a lot to you, the viewer. And that is such a welcome change, because I think we've all been in situations where if we could just turn to look towards somewhere else when someone is saying something so incredibly asinine, we probably would. So as a device, it works. It's interesting. And as the series goes on, her character becomes more fleshed out. She's still not a great person in many ways, but she's not a bad person either. She's trying. And the thing is, sure, her effort is not always that great sometimes, but that's okay, because she's human, and we make mistakes and we do stupid things. And it's a fascinating show. If you've given up on Fleabag, as I almost did, give it another try. It's generally witty, it's kind, it's biting, satirical. It comments on the relationships between men and women, and women, and sisters relating to fathers and mothers. It's just a really clever show, really well done, and kudos to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who also wrote this series. And I believe has also had some rewriting duties on the upcoming James Bond movie. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Peace.